Hi, I'm Ben Howells, and this is my final presentation. This is my audience.
Hi, I'm Phil Howells, Ben's dad.
I'm Karen Howells, Ben's mum.
Okay. Here we go. Okay. So I'm going to start by telling the case to you two. It's a pretty short case, and since I think every detail is pretty important, I'm going to just read the whole thing. Here we go. You are a police officer assigned to patrol in an urban residential area. Your beat is a lower socioeconomic area comprised of housing projects, small stores, and warehouses. You are currently working the day shift. While cruising down Elm Street, you routinely pull into a grocery store parking lot. Sometimes you are able to find stolen automobiles that have been abandoned in various public parking lots. As you begin to check a car with no license plates, you notice a small boy running between the cars. The boy appears to be attempting to hide from you. You get out of your patrol car and walk over to where the boy is hiding. You find the boy squatting behind one of the cars. He could be no more than 7 or 8 years old and is carefully guarding a large shopping bag he has in his possession. You ask the boy where his mother is, thinking that a parent would not be far from such a small child. He quickly informs you that his mother is working at a factory 2 blocks away. The boy further explains that his father does not live with him and his mother anymore. He goes on to explain that his name is David and that he lives alone with his mother in a project several blocks away. You look into the shopping bag and find that it contains CD players, GPS units, and other items commonly found in automobiles. You ask David where he got the contents of the bag, and he tells you he found them, but he is unable to explain where he found the items. You pick up the shopping bag, take David by the hand, walk through the parking lot with him. You notice several cars with doors partially open and windows broken. Upon closer inspection, you find that they were apparently burglarized. Again, you ask David where he got the items in the shopping bag. David begins to cry and tells you he stole them from the cars in the parking lot. You take David back to your patrol car and sit him down in the front seat. By the way David is dressed, you know he is poor. Sitting next to David in the car, you ask him what he's going to do with the stolen items. Still crying, he tells you about how he takes the stolen merchandise. He sells them to a teenage student. Apparently this is not the first time David has stolen things. David only knows the teenage fence by his first name, Willie. He tells you that Willie usually gives him a couple of dollars for the stolen items. It is obvious that Willie has a good racket going by buying several $100s worth of goods for only a couple of dollars. Willie probably resells the items for 3 or 4 times the money he gives the small, tear-eyed boy sitting in your cruiser. Your gut starts to ache as you wonder for a moment where it will all stop, or if in fact ever will. David goes on to tell you that he's only begun stealing things a couple of weeks ago. He explains that he only wanted enough money to buy a birthday present for his mother next week. David says that his mother has not received a birthday present since his father left. He wants to buy his mother a new dress. A lot of kids have lied to you before, but this time you believe what David is telling you. You feel sorry for him. Knowing that what action you take will have a lasting impression on the child makes you uncomfortable and frustrated. Generally, all you would have to do is turn David over to the juvenile authorities and let them handle the case. It sickens you to think about treating the child in a formal police manner. You could wait until the owners of the property return to their cars, give their items back to them, and take David home. But David needs to learn right from wrong. He needs so many things. You wonder how many other Davids are stealing for Willie. You buy David a Coke to buy yourself sometime. You need to think. He looks up at you for an answer. Your cruiser's radio breaks the silence. DWI on Elm Street. I'm first going to start by analyzing what type of crime it is and the appropriate punishment for crimes like this and usual cases. It's a juvenile crime because everyone involved is under the age of 18, and therefore it will not go through the criminal justice system that adults go through. Typical juvenile punishments are fines, where the suspect pays the court, restitution, where the suspect pays the victims, which in this case would be the owners of the cars, counseling, where the suspect must attend counseling or therapy with or without court supervision. And probation is another option, or in other words, the suspect must behave and meet with an officer periodically to prove that they will not break the law again. Finally, the most severe option is detention. There are several different types of detention centers, ranging from youth service programs to weekend detention to full-time detention. Part of the process here was I had 3 questions, and I asked them to 3 different people I interviewed before this presentation. The 3 people are Ali Sheehan, a criminal justice student at Westfield State University, Isaiah Martinez, a Penn State student, and Zach Mazzarella, also a Penn State student. The first question is, what should you do? I personally think that this depends very much so on where it occurs. For instance, if it is in the heart of a crime-ridden city, I may be less tempted to believe the kid as I would be in a safer suburb, and I do think that something needs to be done. I do think that something needs to be done, though, as if the child goes unpunished, he may go on to continue doing these crimes without considering the consequences. Although I do believe, due to his age and immaturity, the punishment should not be too severe. In that regard, I believe the right thing to do would be to consult a judge or someone similar in the police station who might have more experience, or their actual job is assigning punishments like this. Ali said, I would not send him to jail, but I would set him up with an age-appropriate punishment, like helping to clean up a park or something, and set him up with the Big Brother, Big Sister program so he has someone to help guide him in the right direction. Isaiah said, I would have the boy return all the stolen merchandise from where he had stolen it. Then I would give David some money so he can buy his mother a gift, and inform him that anyone who tries to make him continue stealing, that he should contact me. I would give him my personal cell phone number and drive him home before attending to the DUI. Zach said, make David return the stolen property and apologize to the individuals. Tell him that the next time he'll be in more trouble. Then also have him show you to Willie. Bring Willie into the juvenile authorities. Our answers to these questions were quite similar, but we did have some differences. Everyone seemed to agree that David was too young for a harsh punishment, and he was too impressionable, and anything too harsh might be too traumatic on him and affect the rest of his life. That being said, also not punishing him might affect the rest of his life in a negative way as well, as he might just continue to commit crimes. Isaiah was the most generous by offering to pay for the gift that he was trying to buy, and maybe that generosity would lead him to not commit crimes and to spend his time with nicer people. And then the one main difference between what we said is I was the only one that chose to have the decision be done by someone more trained to handle these types of things. Second question is, could you effectively handle the situation by yourself? What options do you have? I personally think this could be handled by most experienced officers. I cannot entirely speak to this, as I have no experience in criminal justice, and I haven't experienced anything this close to this situation. That being said, if I was a police officer and the situation happened to me, I think I would be able to handle it myself, as it is more of just a decision than it is strictly a need for manpower. I think the options are pretty simple. You either let him off with a warning and hope he learned his lesson, or bring him in and process him. And then it is up to the judge or other police officers to determine how he should be handled. Ali said, you can't do anything on your own. You would need the people of the Big Brother, Big Sister to get involved for David, and maybe get involved with Willie as well. Your options would either be send David to jail or help him, and the result to jail wouldn't be good. He's at an age where he needs help and guidance, not punishment. Isaiah said, I could handle the situation on my own. I can choose to let David go and show him that law enforcement is there to protect the citizens. Any further investigation on Willie can be dealt with in the future. Zach said, I think you could handle it on your own if you did not have to respond to the DWI. You might need to call for someone to either handle that situation or take care of David while you handle it. I think this is an interesting comparison because our opinions are roughly the same, but our perspective of the situation is different. Isaiah, Zach, and I all thought of it as a short-term solution. We only thought of what you should do in the here and now in that exact situation, whereas Ali was thinking of not only that, but what needed to be done in the days following. And then Zach was also the only one that brought up addressing the DWI that was in the situation as well. And the final question is, the young boy could be an effective link into a serious burglary larceny problem. What is the problem and how could it be handled by the police? I think there is obviously a problem if older kids are recruiting younger ones to commit crimes for a profit. The problem here lies mostly with the older boys because they're mature enough to know that what they're doing is wrong, and they're bringing in these kids who aren't old enough to know that. And the police definitely need to address the issue, and should probably be done by tracking down the older kids in this. And from there on, it should just dissolve from the top down. Allie said they could use him to figure out the other links in the situation, but honestly, if Willie is a teenager, they are immature and scared, so he would give up the names of everyone else in the circle with a little pressure. Isaiah said the problem is there is several levels of crimes happening, where young children being introduced to the crime out of the necessity for a livable income. The solution would be to find the ringleader of the crime and to show the children other ways to support themselves through programs and other mentoring from police officers. Zach said, Willie paying David to go out and steal items for him is a big problem. Willie definitely needs to be found and put through the judicial process. We all agreed something needed to be done quickly, and definitely to the older kids. Allie was the only one that suggested an actual way to accomplish this, and that was to put pressure on Willie and see if he caved in, gave in all his accomplices. Yes, and I think you can tell that all of our answers are relatively similar, but that's mostly because we come from a similar demographic. We're all college students around the same age who grew up in a similar setting. So I'm going to ask my audience, who's a little older, to answer one of the questions as well, to see what their response would be. And before that, I looked into some statistics about stealing in youth and found some interesting things on shopliftingprevention.org. The first notable one I found was approximately 25% of shoplifters are kids, the other 75% being adults. But more interestingly, 55% of adult shoplifters say they started shoplifting in their teens. It stood out to me for two reasons. One being that it's a quarter of shoplifters being kids is a very high number. That needs to be brought down for sure. And I think the way that is brought down, it speaks to the second statistic in that over half of shoplifters say they started when they were young. So I think the police force needs to really focus on limiting young shoplifters in order to stop shoplifting more as a whole. And then the second statistic I found was 89% of kids say they know other kids who shoplift. 66% say they hang out with those kids. This kind of speaks to the group mentality of the situation, especially with Dave and Willie and supposedly the other teenagers. And kids probably steal with each other when they're young and kind of grow up together and then recruit younger kids. And so you need to not only stop the teenagers now, but you also need to prevent the younger kids from becoming those teenagers in the future. Okay, I'll ask my audience some questions now. I'll just do the first one. What would you do in this scenario?
I think that the police officer should ignore the DWI call and take David home to his mother so that he'll be in a safe environment. And then I think that the police officer should either be a mentor, or more importantly, I think the police officer should contact the school with his mother to tell the school that David has been misbehaving and acting out, and that he needs some more supervision and probably an after-school program.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think that the officer's in a bind when he gets the other call. You would hope that maybe in a police force or police officers in the area that he might be able to defer the call to one of his colleagues and be able to spend more time with the young man who's so impressionable and try to work with him and to understand what the deeds he's done and how he might be able to correct his ways. You certainly don't want to just drive away with the boy there, and in a perfect world you'd take him home, but maybe it sounds like his mother is at work. So you've got some limitations, but We'd love to see if some other officers could help out in the DWI so he could spend more time and do the right thing with a young child.
Okay, do you have any questions for me?
Well, I guess what do you have any other ideas of maybe community programs or things that you might think of that might be able to help David have a better structure around him so he's not not vulnerable to these situations?
Yeah, I think Allie pointed out Big Brother and Big Sister, which is a good program like that, and there definitely needs to be something in his life. So outside of school, he's not alone all the time when his mother isn't around. He needs to have an adult presence with him to make sure he is not only just following the law, but also learning and growing as a child. I don't know of any programs off the top of my head that are like that, but I'm sure there are some, and
Well, the other
definitely
thing,
can be
the other thing
thought out.
that Karen mentioned is that maybe his mother hasn't looked adequately into some after-school programs where he could spend a few hours after school until she gets out of work. Things along those lines.
Yep. Okay, just want to say thank you to my audience and to the 3 people I interviewed, Allie, Zach, and Isaiah. That's it.